today I show you how to sew my free sewing pattern. You can get it on my website. I use for the pattern a thin cotton fabric, but you can also use a viscose or viscose blend or a lightweight linen fabric. Yeah, I use this one. Yeah, let's go. I cut the pieces already, so this is the back here. I cut it here, place on fold. So I have one back and four front. And then we have here the ruffles. And now you need to decide if you want it with straps or without. So for the straps you have here the normal grain line, and 45 degree on this grain line we have the bias grain line, and here I cut 3 centimeter wide straps. You can make a normal strap or you can tie it on the shoulder, and then you need 4 of the straps. I think this time I will tie it on the shoulder, so I cut 4 of them. So then we can start with the ruffles. First of all, I iron it here on half. Oops. And then we can sew the ruffles. For this I use a elastic thread like this, and I don't do it with the machine, I just make it here like this, not stretching, just normal. And then we can do the bobbin the normal way in the sewing machine. And I always take it here with the upper thread. So. And then I always use the normal stitch, and here the longest stitch length, and tension depends a little bit on fabric. For my fabric it's normal lightweight cotton, 3 to 4, yeah, it's enough. And then we can start to sew the normal way. And then I sew here the ruffles together. I sewed here with around 8 millimeters or 5 all the way down, and I do it without front and back stitches, but yeah, you can do it however you want. And then we can iron it, then later it's easier to sew to the top. And then we can start with the back pattern. Here I just make a line or something, or a cross that this is the upper edge, because it's here wider than the hem. Yep. So now we can start with the shearing. I do it always in the width of 1 centimeter, parallel lines. But I start here 2 centimeter from the upper edge and also end here 2 centimeter from the bottom. So I have here 2 like this, and then I sew just straight lines, and I don't do front and back stitches, just normal. So this is the first line, and then I make the second, and here I sew the same way, but I stretch it a little bit, then it's easier to sew. And yeah. Then we can iron the back pattern a little bit. And then we use the normal thread again. So then we can sew the front or two of the front patterns to the back. So I have it here like this, and here you have to check which one is the upper edge. So here, and then we sew it here, right sides together here, and I do the same here on the other side. Here also right sides together. So we can pin it here. And when we sew it, make sure you also sew the elastic thread with. So, and the same on the other side. And then we sew it here with 1 centimeter. And then we can cut here the ends a little bit. And then we can iron the seam allowance here to the front. So, and now we can start with the ruffles. So we have here the front notch, then I place it here over the notch, here. Then I start sewing here from this point with around 8 millimeter seam allowance, and turn it a little bit like this. Then it looks nicer from the outside, because then we have it more like this, or not like this. So I start here. So, and then I sew here straight, and we can cut it off here. No. And I sew it not stretched here, and when I'm here on the back, I sew it stretched. The ruffle, so I stretch the ruffles and also the back pattern, and then I sew it here like this together, only on the back. So now the step you only need if you want straps on the top. So I do it with 4 straps that I can tie it at the shoulder, but you can also do it with only 2 normal straps. So I fold it here on half, and then I sew it around 4 millimeters. And then we can cut here the seam allowance. And then we can turn it with the loop turner or a very small safety pin. So just pull it here through the strap. So, and then we can pin it here to the notch. Here. If you don't see the notch here, you can just check on the pattern and place the strap here inside. So, and then we can place here the front to the front pattern, nice sides together, like this. And then I sewed with 1 centimeter seam allowance. And make sure the ruffles here inside. So. And here on this side I folded here 1 centimeter up, and then I sew here over the 1 centimeter, and later, but I leave it open here, and then we can turn it later here through the hole and just sew from the outside here. But first we sew it here and with 1 centimeter overlapped. So and then we can cut the seam allowance a little bit. And then we can finish the seam allowance here only on the back pattern. Here we don't need it because we have the lining here. So I only finish here, this side and this with a normal zigzag stitch or serger if you have. Then we can turn it to the nice side and iron it. I iron it always like this. It did the seams here in the middle, like this. Then we can also iron here the ruffles to the nice side. And then we can close here the opening. I fold the 1 centimeter to the inside like this, and then I pin the needles this way, because then I can sew from the outside in the same seam. Then I can sew here in the same seam from the outside. And then we can sew on the strap here on the back. I do it around 11 centimeters from the seam here, stretched like this. So, and then we can sew it on. And we can sew it here just on the seam allowance and maybe a few stitches here on the ruffle. My strap is 40 centimeters long, but you can try it on and then sew the back. But today I sew one to the front here and the other one to the back, and then I can tie it here on the shoulder. So I do it also 11 centimeters here. So here's the seam allowance, and then I start here with a few stitches only on the seam allowance, and then we can fold it here to the top and sew here, maybe also here a few stitches, and here only on the ruffled part a few stitches. And then we can make a knot here at the end, only if you have 4 straps, and cut it here.